I'm figuring out a little bit more like it's a we're gonna try to do my because they already sent them, I'm gonna put a little more central view because you're the one that I can call out. Is that one? Yeah. Probably. Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Like that.
Check, check, 1, 2, 3.
Check, check, 1, 2, 3.
We definitely no. This is ours. Okay.
So,
And there's
podium, Vice-President.
okay, no problem.
It feels weird. Don't break it. Oh yeah, so I'll show you. So you can pull like this. And we have to. Do you guys want some ASMR? I mean, no, I mean it's fine. I think that's just what Adam was saying. I mean, you can't just hold it to it. I'm weirdly used to that. But I'm gonna put it back in here. Maybe not shout into it.
Alright, I'm not very good with it. It's not real. I don't know. What are you studying? Listen, it's a prerequisite for all.
Yeah.
I just do like that. only way my parents meeting I'm part of most of their parents. That's something I want to go into. And my friend Matt I mean, I meant I don't know. I've never done it. It's okay, you get the report.
Guys ready? Guys ready? All right. Everyone ready? Hello, everyone. My name is Dan, and I'm the ASPSU Judicial Review Board Chair, and I'll be introducing this year's ASPSU debate events. Welcome to the ASPSU debates for President and Vice President candidates in this year's ASPSU elections. We're holding this event in a hybrid fashion for the first time, so please bear with us. We have 3 President and Vice President tickets, and we have Zoe Buhrmaster, Vanguard News editor, here to act as our moderator. We haven't had 3 President/Vice President tickets within ASPSU elections since 2016, so -4. So this is quite the exciting year, and we encourage you to do your own homework as a voter. So we will be asking the candidates questions, some of which have been submitted by PSU community members ahead of time via the poll. And we'll also be allowing for some time for audience questions. We encourage you to ready your questions, whether you are online or in person, and to listen and learn more about the students hoping to represent the student body for the 2023-2024 academic year. The President and Vice President within the student government are tasked with acting as representatives and advocates for their fellow students and setting internal as well as external priorities for their administration. So it is important to know who you are voting for. We're going to start off with candidate introductions, and then I'll pass it off to Zoe. Candidates, please briefly introduce yourselves with your name, pronouns, major, and why you are interested in running for student government.
Okay, I will start. So my name is Tiffany, and my pronouns are she or they. And my major is a master in public policy, which is secondary to my first master's degree in criminal justice criminology. I have a heart for people, and my focus in my current major is advocacy, and I feel like it dovetails well with this role. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yoko Kinoshita, and my pronoun is she, her, hers, and major is social work, public administration, service learning, graduate certificate. And why I love students, I love to support students, and so I'm here for her today, and yesterday, the day before, is a support for myself too, but support for the others. So I like to be always to support for students. I've been mentor for 7 years here in university studies. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Yousif Ibrahim. I'm currently a sophomore here at Portland State, and I study international policy and pre-law with a minor in political science. And why I'm going for ASPSU is because for years, no one has known who their president is, who their vice president is, who their senate is. There is a large disconnect between the student body and the student government. And we are here to bridge that gap between the two because we are here to advocate for students. And we'll go more into that later on in the debate.
Hello, my name is Ahmad. I'm studying computer science, and I'd say the biggest reason that I'm running with Yousif is because he was like, let's run. We should make a lasting change at PSU before I graduate after next year. And I was like, okay. And we also get kicked out of the library a lot, so hopefully we can change that going forward.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lanie Sticka. I am a finance major here at PSU, so I'll be graduating in June and then coming back for my MBA, which I'm very excited about. I chose finance and kind of translated that into ASPSU with currently SFC, which I very much enjoy. So I'm already very invested in the ASPSU process, and I just really look to continue to support and uphold students and their beliefs and hopefully helping them with their personal and professional growth. So I'm very excited to continue to do that if elected.
Hi, I'm Tucker. I'm currently studying urban and public affairs. The reason I wanted to be part of ASPSU is because I'm currently part of ASPSU, and I really enjoy what they do for the students on campus, and I'd like to continue the work that I've started this year, next year.
All right, thank you, candidates. And now Zoe will start off with questions. Please make sure to keep it brief. You'll be timed on 2 minutes. 2 minutes. So that your fellow candidates have time to participate. Best of luck.
All right, first question. Will each candidate please briefly summarize their slate platform?
To clarify that question, by slate platform, you mean like who's in the slate?
The platform that you're running under.
Oh, like what we're running for.
So our platform is community building. Bringing people together is something that's very important to everyone on my slate. It's something we've talked about a lot. And how can we bring people together and encourage them to participate with the student government, as well as be connected to different services and things that are available at the school? I know when I first came here in 2012, don't do the math. When I first came here, I didn't know about all of the things that are offered by the school, and I actually didn't really learn about them until I joined the J board. And that's where I found out how much the school has to offer, how many support services, and that's something that we want to encourage people to participate in and have their needs filled and met where possible here on campus.
Yeah, community building and create a sense of belonging for students and domestic students, international students, anybody. And so for 4, 5, 6, 7 years going to be here in a PSU, I want everybody, we wanted to, for everybody to feel this is a second house for them. Thank you.
No, we are PSU for you. You can give many different definitions for why we call it PSU for you. But the main reason why we have it as that is so that the government is for the students. We are for the body. So that the students can interact with us so we can advocate for them. Because just like I said in our introduction, students don't know who the government is. How many people have I gone and asked, do you know who your president is, your vice president, so on, right? I've asked so many times, they don't know. We are the associated students of Portland State University. They should know who is advocating for them, who is speaking for them, who is trying to make change for them, which is why our slate is called PSU for you.
That's all needs to be said.
Okay. Our slate is results with resolve, and our slate has a few big picture items, but the two biggest ones that I can think of right now are economic sustainability as well as communication. So starting with that first one, it is mostly centered around our resource centers that are specifically for students around campus and creating those bonds for both groups, as well as also just making sure that students know that they are there, have them available for students, and then as we all know, enrollment is going down, so starting to think about new options, as well as collaborating FFAs together so that we can create the best possible PSU environment for our students.
And then, so yeah, communications are our next big one. Yeah, students don't know really who.
1 minute warning.
Okay, students don't really know who their government is. That's a problem. Definitely, they should be involved in the process, especially in decisions that really affect them. So, yeah, we're gonna sort of work on figuring out how to fix that problem going forward.
Awesome. Why are you interested in being a part of ASPSU? Why specifically the position that you are applying for?
The main reason I wanted to come back to ASPSU is I really enjoyed my time supporting students and supporting the constitution of ASPSU and making sure that the different people who are involved are working with the other students' best interest in mind. And the other reason is I want to be involved in advocacy and promoting the needs of the students. I had the experience of being exposed to some of the issues that we run into, such as the financial issues, and I want to be a part of helping us resolve our issues without putting that burden on the students. As a student myself, I know how costly it is to attend, and it's very difficult for many of us who are especially non-traditional students to meet that financial burden.
I'm really enjoying the ASPSU right now, and I was SFC member 2 terms, and then this is the second term being director of global community.
1 minute warning.
Community. So I'm really enjoying right now. I'm going to continue to support students. I'm just like to serve for students, even in a group of the member, and then why I'm vice president. I apply for this too because Stephanie needed somebody help, and that's why I just step in. Thank you.
Day in and day out, I'm on campus. I'm walking in the library, rec center, cultural resource centers. We're going to speak more of what we want to do with those later on. But we are there every day, speaking with students, interacting with them, hearing their concerns, hearing their needs. And they need someone to project their needs, to be a voice for them. That is why I believe that Ahmed and I, we can do that. We can help influence the ASPSU to do that as well. Because we need strong, charismatic leaders who's able to push for change, to push to help diversity, to push to help for student fee, anything in regards to allocation towards student fees. We need to be able to know what the students want and what they need to do. And that's why I feel we are a good fit for that. Just the fact that we know the students here, we are interacting with them every day in and day out. We know who they are, and they know who we are, and we plan to push forward in that, to get to know everyone, not just a small group of them. That's why we need to be PSU for you.
1 minute warning.
I've always been at the cultural resource centers. I guess since last year. But the Pan-African Commons pack specifically, I wasn't really that into until Yousif introduced me to most of the people there. And now we chill there all the time until we get kicked out at 5 p.m. It's a common theme. And Yousif expressed to me that he wanted to change that. And I could see he's a very charismatic person. He's a very good people's person. He's a very good people's person. I wouldn't say I'm so much, but I excel at supporting other people. And I believe that I can support Yousif in his mission, and that's why I'm running as his vice president.
I see a common theme with a lot of these candidates on stage, which is support for students, and I'm very excited to hear that we are all in favor of that and are going to focus on that for the PSU community. I also am very excited to run for president, specifically because I've been part of Senate and SFC, and I've got to see all of the initiatives and policies and constitution review that we've been able to do. And so I'm so invested in that process, and I'm really excited to continue that journey. And within this role of president, I think it's so important to support our students. And in the case that they maybe be scared to speak up for themselves or don't know how to go about that process, it is up to us to give them that information and help them along that road. So I am very much looking forward to being part of that process with both professional and personal growth for all of our students, and helping our senators also become those people for our other community members around campus and remotely.
1 minute warning.
Yeah, I don't want to just reiterate what everyone else has said. I'm along the same lines. But for me personally, being part of ASPSU this year, I just feel that my role could be doing more involvement with the students. And that's why I want to sort of move up to the vice president position, because they are the ones who are definitely out there talking to people and learning the ins and outs of the things related to the university. So I'd like to keep going with that.
How do you deal with conflict in a group setting? How will you foster a student government environment that represents and supports diverse opinions, including those that differ from your own?
I think the biggest key to dealing with conflict is to first be honest about it, acknowledge it, and hear everyone's opinions. And as part of that, elevating diverse opinions that often get drowned out by the dominant culture. I think that if we have a disagreement, I can hear you and I can honor your opinion based on the facts that you know and the experience that you have. Even if I disagree, and even if almost everyone disagrees, you still have the right to your own thoughts and to be respected in the space.
Conflict is try to understand. Active resolution is, I'm trying to say, is like active listening. Try to understand a different opinion and then try not to react to it, respond to it.
1 minute warning.
So where they come from, what is really the point? Sometimes how to frame or how do you say, construct our thinking, ideas from different culture is different way to thinking about it. So just take time to think and understand what they're talking about and carefully listening to understand really. And then where is a common ground, what we are looking for, the goal. That's I want to focus. Thank you.
I feel that the answer to this can be very simple, and I might as well just give the simple answer to that, which is we need to be open. We need to have transparency between each party, because we don't want it to become an argument where people are yelling over the other or someone feels that they're not being heard. Let's have a nice, cordial debate. If there's any conflict that happens in ASPSU or outside of PSU, we want to make sure that there's a mediator, someone who can mediate the discussion, so they can push the discussion towards productivity, right? Rather than negativity or rather than destructive conversations. We need to make sure that we are open-minded towards anything and everything, as much as we can, to our best ability. And the first thing we need is a focal point. That focal point is the mediator, the one who's able to calm people down, speak to people, listen to people. The best attribute for a leader is someone who can listen, someone who knows what the other person is saying. They understand it, and they're compassionate with their response.
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning.
I'll be honest, I don't like tolerating bullshit. So I acknowledge there's going to be arguments. People are going to disagree. But as long as you hear everybody's perspective and there's still disagreement, you can have like a majority vote. But there's going to be disagreements. There's going to be conflict. I think that's how you reach change. Yeah.
I also agree that conflict is completely normal. We're all humans. We all have differing opinions. That is something that we live with every day. And that also fosters the ability to grow and learn new things, which is something I'm very passionate about. I love learning things, and if someone has the ability to tell me something new that I don't know and give me information that I don't have, I'm always open to that opportunity. I also think being a leader is leading with respect and open-mindedness and understanding and the ability to and want to learn. So those are some of the qualities I see in myself, and I think will continue to be beneficial within ASPSU.
Yeah, I agree. I think conflict is important, especially in the decision-making process, but I truly believe that it should be handled with civility, you know, when differing opinions are brought forward. So yeah, we're just, how do we do that in a way that's beneficial to everyone and also comes out, you know, with everyone heard and hopefully happy.
Next question, what items on your opponent's agenda do you support? What do you oppose? If you are not elected, are you willing to work with the people you are currently running against? How would you ensure that your differences don't overshadow or hinder the function of student government?
It's a great question, especially with the acknowledgement that we are all fairly like-minded. We want what's best for students. We want to focus on the resources that we have in our community, as well as addressing some of the financial issues. And my running mate and I are both also running for other positions because we want to be part of this team, whether it's in this role or supporting through another role.
Yeah, I really like to support students. That's a basic, my bottom line. So anything is come up, the position to support, doesn't matter which position it is. So for me, it doesn't bother which guide me to the position. Thank you.
Yeah, in regards to our policies and our main goals, we're all similar. All of us candidates, we have similar goals because we're all students of Portland State University. We know what's going on. We understand that, right? At one point, I thought that I was reading their website, the results of their website, and I thought they were copying me for a little bit, but I realized that they're not copying me, right? They just have the same ideas, the same mindset as us. And I respect that. And of course, I would love to work with the current candidates up on stage. But at this point, it's not just about what policies you have and how you want to advocate. It's about that initiative, that drive, that want to make change, to seek change, to find it, right? It's about having that passion for it rather than just having policies for it. We can all make policies. We can all Google where the fees are being allocated. We can all Google what diversity is on ChatGPT, right? But it's about knowing your uniqueness and what you bring to the table and what you can provide later on.
Yeah, we all pretty much want to better allocate the money towards better student programs and stuff, but there's a limited amount of money, and the reality is that it's just determining where the money's gonna go. So while we might have an idea of what we want to do with the money, like maybe give more money to the cultural resource centers so they can be open later, there's a lot more that we don't know because we haven't yet asked all the students what they want. And that's what we're gonna be doing if we become president and vice president.
Yeah, I am totally in support of both of our candidates here. We all are looking to uplift and support our students. We're all looking to hopefully minimize fee increases for our students. Those are two huge problems on campus and will continue to be problems on campus with our budget climate going forward. So keeping that in mind, I think is very important. I also, like I said before, I'm very invested in ASPSU. I've been part of student government my whole time here, the last 2 years at PSU, and will continue to be on student government the 2 years that I have left. So hopefully that will not change, and I would look forward to working with anyone on this stage as well because of all of our open-mindedness.
Yeah, I don't think Lanie could have said it any better. I've been a part of ASPSU, and going forward, I'd love to continue that as well. So.
What is the importance of grades as a standard for members of ASPSU?
Well, those of us who've been in ASPSU or been on the J board know that we have to maintain a GPA in order to participate. For the most part, in my experience, we offered a lot of grace for students, especially if they had a plan in order to address their grade point average deficiency. What the grade point average, though, what it tells us is that you as a student work hard on your primary goal, which is getting your education. And some of that is reaching out to your professors and working with them, working with other students, working with the tutoring center, and making sure that you know how to prioritize. And that's an important skill to also bring to the ASPSU position that you have. Those are overlapping things, but the most important thing is your education, and that's why we need to make sure that students are succeeding in their education
1 minute warning.
before their role in ASPSU.
Thank you. I'm not saying that GPA is everything, but it's a really important measurement. And so I, as a mentor for 7 years, I really care about students, and I wanted to help them to student success. That's the bottom line. So anything we can help. This is a leadership kind of program. It's ASPSU, the government, but it's also a program for the student to earn the leadership skill. It's top of being a student, successful student. So this is a part of being a student. And then hopefully they're going to be success and try to figure out so they can be a good student to show the other people to kind of lead other students too. So the GPA is really important to just measurement. Thank you.
Like Yoko said, academic excellence is a level of measurement to some degree. Now, I'm not saying that it is the only thing on the measurement scale, right? But it does show some type of diligence, some type of hard work that you have. If you're willing to study for a test, if you're willing to turn in that homework assignment, you're probably willing to go out and meet with students and do this and this and that for ASPSU, right? It's connects. Having a higher grade point average shows that you have, not completely, but to some degree, shows that you have a higher work ethic. And having a high work ethic in ASPSU is important, very important.
I'm not a big fan of the GPA. It's like kind of arbitrary, but I think it shows you where somebody's priorities are, and not just active priorities like, oh, they choose to do well in school, but like, what are they worrying about? For example, if they're food insecure, they might not do as well in their classes because they're worried about food, or maybe they're not eating well and they're not be able to think on their homework.
1 minute warning.
So it is important to gauge where members of ASPSU are at, where their priorities are. Are they focusing on school? But it's also important for us to see what the students of PSU, what their GPAs are, because that's a reflection of how we've allocated our funds. Do they have the food that they need, the resources they need?
I think this is a very interesting topic, and this is actually a question I've posed before within ASPSU. At my previous school, which was Clackamas Community College, we took this same question, identified how many students were, within both ranges, and changed how we actually allowed people to apply for student government there. Within that, I think that we gained a new understanding from students that, like our opponents said, were food insecure, had children maybe, had different priorities. Everyone is still a student, and if student success means that they want to be a part of ASPSU, maybe with a lower grade point average, then I think that's something that we could be looking into, because those voices still matter and still need to be heard, and that could be a large population of our students. So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with many of them. It is a very interesting metric to use, and it could show, drive and whatever. We are all students, after all, but yeah, there are other determining factors that could, affect what your grade point average is. So maybe there are alternatives to eligibility within ASPSU that we could look into.
All right, next question. What would you bring to the table as a president or vice president? What changes would you like to make if elected?
I feel like I need to do more research on what changes need to be made, and part of that is understanding the policy process. whenever we make a change in one area, it's going to have a ripple effect in another area. So we need to actually research what it is we're changing and how it will affect something else. For example, if I take money from one area to give it to another one, what are the unintended consequences of depleting the funding for the area that I took it from? Or what is it that's really important to the students? And some of that could be garnered through surveys and things like that, which I haven't accessed at this point if they exist. But I would like to do more research and really use a lens of what are the trade-offs and what are the levers we can use to affect change through policy.
Yeah, that's really same as her. It's just what really need to be changed, how it's going to affect it. And then hopefully the collaborations over the department or different offices or group of students, some we can do the collaborative way to kind of save money and then more efficiently, and just wanted to see how we can do. Thank you.
Like I've mentioned, the presidential role is to advocate, to speak, and to represent the student body. And what we need is someone who is willing to go out and speak with the students, to interact with the students, to have the students know who they are. Essentially to put a face to ASPSU so that they know who they can go to and who they can be comfortable with. And I believe I can bring that. I believe that I bring new perspective at the same time. For however many years in ASPSU, the president and vice president traditionally come from already set positions in the ASPSU, from Senate, Student Fee Committee, and whatnot. And because of this, I feel that the ideologies and the mindset has always been recycled. Every single time. Same mindset, the same policies that want to be pushed, right? And I feel that I can bring change to that. I can bring an outside perspective into the ASPSU. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the last major policy that was pushed was in 2021-2022 academic school year, which was the low-income housing scholarship. That's the last one I saw when I was searching which bylaws were passed. Why is this? Because no new change is being pushed. None. Not from what I can see, and now from outside students can see. So I can bring that change. I can bring that drive and initiative for change as someone who has a new mindset and a new perspective.
After change, the biggest thing we bring is presence. Often, I go to the library or at work, I'll ask people, do you guys know we have a student government? And they're like, no. Do you guys know who the student president is? Student body president is? They're like, no. And that's what we want to change, is we're going to come up to people, whether they like it or not, whether they ask or not. We're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to ask them, do you know we have student government? What would you want to see student government do? So that when they see the changes happening, they know that they're the ones who said it to us.
2 minutes. One thing I definitely want to reiterate that we've heard is that asking students what they actually want is going to be very crucial these upcoming years. Other than that, we all know that our current budget climate is not doing so hot. So during SFC, a new thing that we've implemented this year that I am very excited to continue on with is called measurement of success for our fee-funded areas. So determining the impact of all of our resource centers on students and whether or not the allocations really identify those hopes and desires of our students. Within the years to come, we will be getting less money and we're going to have to work with what we got. So if collaborating and maybe consolidation is on the horizon, then I think that's something that we should really be looking forward to and trying to find answers to now before it's under us and we have no idea how to fix it.
Yeah, I'm much in agreement. Just definitely navigating this climate situation that we're, or this economic situation that we're in, sorry, and figuring out how we can better help the students, especially with lower enrollment and stuff like that, and also fixing outreach strategies to get more students involved with their government process. That's pretty much what I want to bring.
Thank you. What do you think will be the biggest challenge facing our campus community in the coming year, and how do you envision ASPSU's role in lending support?
I think that finances continue to be one of the biggest challenges that we have for students as individuals and for the university as a whole. As Lanie said, enrollment is down, and when enrollment is down, then we not only have less money to work with, but that's less money that we have to have professors, and I'm thinking specifically here of adjunct professors who we have to pay them, and we can't justify that cost and that enriching experience if we don't have enough money to do so. So that's another side of the finances that is not as readily seen by the student experience, is that you have less courses offered to you as part of your major to give you not just options, but real lived experiences. Some of the best classes I've ever taken were people who work out in the field, and they can give you real world experience through their lecture and through their work. And so that is one of the biggest challenges I see. And the other biggest challenge I see is with our public safety and the move back to them carrying sidearms. And that's a can of worms I don't have time to open, but I would like to pass off to my partner.
She said all the, I like to point it out the issues, and then to solve or wanted to go that direction is create the culture. So individual students and faculty and staff have a mindset, can have a mindset to, we are a team. We can create together, collaborate together to make it and PSU branding themselves. So I like to propose or promote the culture, making a culture and a school culture. Thank you.
I feel like a huge issue in regards to campus itself is the campus life. Most students are commuter students, students who go from Hillsborough back to Portland, from Portland to Beaverton, and so on and so forth. What we need is to create an avenue for these students to stay on campus, to be willing to enjoy their time on campus between classes, right? That'll give incentive for students to come in and enroll a part of PSU, because one student's gonna say, hey, I enjoyed this class, and then I enjoyed the resource center over here, and so on and so forth. It's gonna be a domino effect. And how do we do that? Is through financing. That can be through different fee allocations towards the resource centers, the cultural resource centers. These centers are made to give an avenue for students of diverse backgrounds to calm down, sit down, relax, and have a space on campus in which they can be themselves, right? So that they know who they're speaking to, they can speak to different people and just have a nice space to relax. We're students, right? We want to be able to sit back, have a calm mind, not think of our midterms, our tests, our finals, right? Just to be able to be students. And how can we do that? By having different centers open for them, including the cultural resource centers.
I will never forget that day we had that snowstorm. We were all chilling at the library. We got kicked out. And I tried to drive home and got stuck in traffic. So I had to turn around, I'll wait out the traffic. Come 9 p.m., I'm exhausted, I want to go home. I'm stuck in traffic for 3 hours. All because we got kicked out of the library into the snow. That should not happen. Campus should be like our second home. We should be able to stay at the cultural resource centers past 5 p.m. at the library. Especially before COVID, the library was open 24 hours for final exams. We're trying to bring that back. So campus is our second home.
I would agree on our economic climate, the problem that we have again, just reiterating that fact. As enrollment goes down and inflation goes up, students are asked to pay more in tuition, pay more in fees, pay more for all of the things that we need to survive and our basic needs. So finding a way to speak with students, hear their problems, hear about possible solutions. Student government is not the only one with ideas. All of our students have great ideas that just need to be heard, and finding an avenue for them to provide those to us is definitely going to be an essential topic within the years to come. So getting students' thoughts on how or what they would prefer or prioritize for resources when we don't have the money to eventually have all the things that we do now is going to be crucial, in my opinion.
Yeah, so finances, again, biggest problem that faces this campus and the people on it.
1 minute warning.
Definitely figuring out ways to bring up enrollment, reach out to prospective students, get people to think of PSU as their first college, you know, or even bring in transfer students. Just something that incentivizes people to choose PSU to really up that enrollment and, yeah, create that campus life, campus feel of PSU.
Awesome, thank you. Moving on to student engagement. Students have expressed difficulty, especially those who've started school remotely, in knowing how to communicate their needs to ASPSU. As president and vice president candidates, how do you plan to mitigate the lack of communication between students, student government, and administration?
That's a really great question. And one of the things that comes to my mind is using social media to advertise mediums by which that they can communicate with us. For example, they could email us. We could even have anonymous Dropbox for people to leave messages near the ASPSU office in Smith, right? Here's where you can tell us things that you're struggling with if you want to be anonymous about it. And I think that using social media, especially continuing to increase our presence on newer platforms rather than relying solely on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. But as new platforms come out, making sure that there is a presence and that presence is used to not just say, here's what we're doing, but what do you want us to do?
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with the partner, and the social media it's not that everything is the great things, but then we can use it too. So it's a Discord. I was invited to the Discord, or I was invited to the something else. It's just always to be aware of it, and hopefully we can have somebody has the access to it and a platform and using media, and then writing in a box and letters and something. That's I'm thinking too. Thank you.
There is a beautiful thing called the internet. And through the internet, they created avenues called social media. Now, fortunately, Ahmed and I, we began our Instagram account, PSU for You. And this account is nearing 400 followers just over the past, 2 weeks? And in these 2 weeks, the amount of questions that we've had DM'd through us from students, the amount of discourse that we had with students, the amount of organizations that reached out to us and to see what our policies are. We listen to them, hear what they want, and now we're exuding that into this debate. I feel that I agree and disagree at the same time, in which, of course, we're going to use social media, but Instagram is a huge factor in social media. Most of the students today, they're using Instagram and Snapchat as an outlet, right, to express who they are and what they want. We're not only on Instagram, we're on Snapchat as well. The class of 2025 public stories, the 2024 public stories, all these public stories sharing interests through students, right? And it's not just these accounts. We can also go through email newsletters. Now, there's only so much that newsletters can do, but of course, it's still an outlet for it. And it's not just social media. We're going to be in person, and we're going to do our best to have ASPSU, the Senate Student Fee Committee, to be in person as well. We're going to try to influence them, push them to be out there as well, not just in some corner building in corner room in Smith building, right? Be out there, be active.
Yeah, one of our biggest focuses, in person at least, is going up to people. But the social media thing, I think, is our biggest thing, because you get a newsletter or like a survey, you fill it out and then you send it, or like a website, you send it off and then you don't hear back. You don't know if you were heard. At least if you send us a DM and we're not responsible enough to respond to it, you know you're left on scene. You're left on scene. But we're going to respond to you. You'll know that you were heard, because it's like one-to-one. It's direct messaging. And that's our biggest thing, is being interactive.
PSU for You.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things that I've been thinking about when, hearing this question within the other two debates is that it is also essential to be understanding that some students may not want to be involved, and that's okay. Everyone has different priorities. You may have kids at home. You may have, family things that you need to deal with. So doing that is all right. However, for those other students that are looking to be more involved and more present on campus. I think we are definitely moving towards that as a school in general. One thing that we are excited to do next year is have Senate meetings in person, hopefully weekly, as well as SFC and JRB, because your student government being online is not beneficial to our students. We need to be back in buildings, back in person, reaching out to students. So that's something that we are both very invested and excited to do next year if we are elected. 1 minute warning.
Yeah, so online it can be definitely a disconnect between the government and the student body. It can be hard to find a Zoom meeting or whatever to join to watch Senate and actually be a part of that. Same thing with social media. ASPSU does have a social media account, but it doesn't really help get people to show up to events and stuff. Definitely being in person creates that personable feel between you and actually puts a face to the government. And so I think that's definitely very important going forward.
Thank you. Many students have mentioned a general lack of understanding in what ASPSU does and what role they play on campus. How do you intend to boost student interest in ASPSU with these students and with others that commute or have little interest in campus affairs?
Well, something I found helpful, that was loud. Something I found helpful were the emails that we get that are kind of a general information. That's how I found out about J-Board when I first started there, and I am a commuter. And it was difficult to take that step and say, okay, a couple nights a week, I'm gonna stay even later after classes. By getting the word out that we exist, and some of that is informational both through social media and also posters that are around, it does help get the word out. And also, again, opening those channels for people to talk to us and tell us what they want from us. And by that way, they can take those baby steps to get involved.
And also, I wanted to kind of add it to all things, so on an online meeting or a hybrid, and somebody is just taking online too, so it cannot be just only for the in-person, but then in-person is powerful, it is. So hopefully we can have,
1 minute warning.
think for the open to let them know we're having a meeting or we have an extra event or low stake kind of event, and just invite them with a snack or little light snack or drink or something, so they can just stop by between us studies. So hopefully include them too, so then we listen their voice too in that way. Thank you.
I feel that Ahmed could speak better on this than me, but if the students see someone who's willing to speak with them, if the students see someone who's willing to interact with them, who's willing to listen to them, who's willing to hear them out, then they're gonna want to be a part of this. They're gonna want to know, they're gonna be happy to know that someone's there to hear them out. And even if they're not, we're gonna go up to them, we're gonna speak with them, even if they don't wanna hear it. And if they don't wanna hear it, if they push us away, we'll stand back. But we're gonna go up to them first, right? And it's not just in person. I am out here telling people to share our stories, to share our reels, to share our videos, to share whatever you can to other students. It's a spider web, right? The internet, the interweb, it's a web that connects people. We can say that, oh, it doesn't put a face to ASPSU and whatnot. It does. People see us. The amount of people that walked on the park blocks and saw me said, hey, you're the guy from the campaign video. You got my vote, right? They see us, they see me, and they see Ahmed. And they see what we can do for them. That incentivizes them to hear out the ASPSU.
I think this is the first thing I disagree with the other candidates on. I do agree that being in person is extremely important, because I Zoom game events and stuff are not it. I don't like those at all. But social media as an outlet to spread flyers and events is the way to do it. I've worked at Manas at the Cultural Resource Centers, and that's how we got the most turnout for all of our events, was through social media. We got all the other student clubs to repost the events. That's how you get people of this generation, this current generation to come to your events, is when they open their Instagram and they see a story. There's an event next week in this building at this time. They tell their friends about it. Everybody reposts it. That's how you get people to come to these events, both in person and online. And people, especially a lot of our the Art Up student events, people come to them who aren't students on campus because they see it on their stories. Alumni come to the events because it's on their story. They're not going to be on campus seeing flyers. I do genuinely think that social media and Instagram are the way to go to spread our message and tell people about our events and our programs.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say most of the ideas up here are very beneficial. I also think word of mouth is going to be one of our best friends. A lot of us know other people around campus, and especially if you're going into resource centers and whatnot, you know other people. Making sure that all these options are accessible, though, is very important to Tucker and I, because we have a lot of DRC students around, and they are just as important as the rest of us, and we need to make sure that they can get to an event and be heard at an event or see an event or even just, be a part of it in general, and that's going to be one of our mottos, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Also, along the lines of the commuter students, definitely making meetings more accessible, and events planning during times when campus is filled most with people, before people head back to their houses or homes or whatever. So that's definitely something that is important to both of us up here.
How would you branch out your role in ASPSU to represent students on both a local and a statewide level?
Yeah, so something that is resonating with me is, as a remote student during the pandemic, I took all of my classes remote because, like a big nerd, I took a bunch of classes even after I graduated. And what really helps is having things that are hybrid, like Yoko said. So we can keep our meetings and our different events, some will be amenable, some won't, for primarily in person, but you can attend virtually as well so that you can feel connected to other students.
So the question is state government?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question.
Yeah, thank you.
So how would you branch out your role in ASPSU to represent students on a local and a statewide level?
Yeah, I think she's really passionate about it. That's why she's in an MPP policy to go to the state. So I like to go support her to go out, and I really involved with the city committee too and the state to connect with the women's leaders too. So I hope I can just keep growing that network. Thank you.
So there's two words, virtual attendance. Now, after COVID, of course, there have been different platforms that allowed for virtual attendance, i.e. Zoom, Google Meets, and whatnot. However, I feel that in order to branch out, it's necessary. We're not gonna like it. We're not gonna want to do it. However, that is the most necessary avenue to branch out. Now, if you're talking about representing students for the government or towards the government, we can do that by bringing communities together to voice their needs. And these could be empty words, right? I can just say this and people don't have to believe it, right? But showing that dedication towards the cause, being able to bring in different student organizations. We're connected to the Saudi organization, the Black Student Union, the MSA, all these different organizations that we're connected to. Students, large body of students, they can connect and they can bring one voice towards whoever we need to. It's not gonna be difficult, especially if there's someone who can have drive and initiative to do that.
In terms of policy, I think on the job description of the vice president and the president is that they're supposed to research state policy and city policy and see how that affects the current students. So that's number one. Number two is the hybrid aspect of having in-person events and programs on campus, but also having that virtual attendance, but not having solely either, having both, so that it's accessible to both people on campus, it's engaging enough for the people on campus, and it's accessible to the people who aren't able to make it to campus.
Quick plug, lobbying day is coming up on May 11th, so if anyone wants to go to Salem, I would say definitely get involved that way. I know Tuck and I are passionate about hopefully creating big versions of advocacy for students next year, whether that be within ASPSU or just the broader community, but actually going to Salem and talking with our legislative. And one thing I love that I've been a part of a lot is our legislative lunches that we get to do here. So inviting our senators or representatives or any other legislative people who want to come and join and speak to us and hear what our students are having to say at a bigger level is going to be so much fun, and just something I'm very interested in creating an opportunity for our students to have.
Yeah, exactly. Lobbying is such a powerful tool, especially if it's a bunch of students getting in front and in person with state representatives. That really does create that one student voice. Yeah, the representative lunch is super fun. The people in the state legislature are really, really nice people. You could do the same thing with local officials and stuff, inviting them here to talk on policies or anything that could affect PSU. Another thing, oh shoot, no, I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, lobbying is very, very important. Sorry.
Moving on to some Slate-specific questions. ASPSU for you. It's a lot of U's. You've mentioned that a key objective of your campaign is increasing student interaction through face-to-face conversations. As students yourself with classes and other responsibilities, how do you plan to engage with all students on campus?
Is that directed towards
Sorry,
us?
yes, that's just for ASPSU for you.
PSU
We're
for you.
No, we're PSU for you.
PSU for you.
Okay, if that's directed towards that, yeah, I can answer that question. So your question was, is that how can we interact with them face to face, and how could we implement that into the slate and into ASPSU, correct? Yeah. So as we've mentioned before, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, these are great avenues to having students know who we are, right? And I can give examples. Over the past few weeks, I've been posting on Snapchat story. I've been telling students, hey, if you see me, say what's up to me. I've been posting that on my Instagram story, my Snapchat story, and you will be surprised how many people came up to me and introduced themselves to me, saying that they appreciate that I'm going out of my way to meet up with them, to say what's up to them, to say hi to them, right? Because I am a student just like them. A lot of times there's this huge disconnect between the government and the body, right? Because they feel that the government isn't a part of them, or the government is some other higher, blah, 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 whatever, right? But we want to change that. We want to make sure that they know we're down to earth and we're here with them through social media. And in person, if we see someone, we're going to say hi to them, no matter who we are. Ahmed is a very charismatic person. He's someone who loves to meet new people, right? And we love meeting new people. And we're going to adhere towards that. We're going to make sure that they know that we want to meet them through social media and through in-person avenues.
If you don't come up to us, we will come up to you.
Thank you. Resolve with PSU. One goal of your platform, according to your website, is to, quote, create an easier way for students to communicate about their dislikes of online/other fees and create results, end quote. What easier route do you have in mind, and how do you plan to implement it?
Yeah, so one thing that I've gotten the opportunity to talk with, my prior vice chair was was in Bend while she was part of SFC. So making sure that those options are still available. We do have hybrid things written into our constitution for this, and making sure that it's known that you are definitely still able to be a part of anything around campus and have the opportunity to use those resources if you choose. Online fees are not something that ASPSU is in charge of, but is definitely something that we can advocate towards. So asking students their insights on those, and most of them are, why are we paying these? And that's something that we need to address, and something that we need to begin talking about at a different level, instead of just saying, oh, well, because you have to. Let's actually think about it and make a change and see if there's a new type of resolve that we can come to for this problem. 1 minute warning.
Yeah, she really couldn't have said it any better. It's really about communication with everyone on campus.
Awesome, thank you. And community building. Your platform focuses on building community. What are some actionable and measurable steps that you plan on taking to build community at PSU, and specifically between ASPSU and students?
So I think that some actionable steps are working towards promoting the goals of the resource centers and doing surveys of student satisfaction with their community so that we can see that there is growth that comes out of our efforts and out of increased spending in certain areas, because we don't necessarily have demonstrable evidence that what we're doing is what students are satisfied with or happy with, unless we do maybe some pre and post testing of changing the way that we do things.
Yes, I agree with her, and then I wanted to have just, I don't know how it's gonna do, but my blueprint is hopefully everybody, every resource center will have some like a Google form or something, so we can see the data of how they're using it really, not just how many people using that, how they're using it, and then are we doing well or not, and then, I don't know, I just try to have more
1 minute warning.
those take like event, really like between the studies, like a break time, we can use it and come to join like a really like a low key. So we have more opportunity to do that, and not for us to have a lot of things to do or just less for us to and less for the students. So they can join it and feel it, just be here to study it or do something together. So hopefully we can gather the ideas. And then for me, personally, I've been working for like as a mentor for 7 years. It's every 3 months I've seen like a 70, 80 students, and he's one of my mentees too. Everywhere I go, those are my mentees, and it's really, really thankful. So I just keep doing that, and then also I work for the resource center for student children. They always come to talk to me too. So I just try to create the culture I want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the subject of armed CPSO. President Percy recently announced that campus safety officers have rearmed, though according to Chief Halliburton, officers have been armed since February. What are your thoughts on how informing students and staff on campus should have gone? What would you have done differently, if anything?
Well, that is a fantastic question. And firstly, I think with that should have been something made known before it happened. That decision wasn't made overnight, and being told after the fact seems to lack transparency that we all want. We all know, or rather many of us know, why students here are so passionate, because of the gentleman who was killed on campus by the campus police. And I think we all know that Mr. Washington was doing nothing wrong. Having less trained officers who carry arms is dangerous. And it is not, sorry, I'm very passionate about this topic. The officers that work on campus are less trained than most police officers. And the fact that police officers are trained to use their weaponry first and not use tactical communications techniques in order to
1 minute warning.
Sorry, I'm trying to remember the word that I want. Using tactical communications in order to diffuse a situation rather than move towards using weapons is something that should be taught here. And in fact, it's a course that was taught here when I took it. Why our officers aren't being put through that course or a similar course makes no sense to me. It not only exists, but it exists right here. So why didn't we do it?
Yeah, I just hope we can have a good relationship with the administration too, not just for the students. And then I made an appointment with one of the administration this month too, wanted to talk with. So try to have a relationship with the people in the administration too. That's what I wanted to do. Thank you.
I feel that a vital characteristic of a leader in ASPSU is to know when you don't know enough about a certain topic. I unfortunately do not know enough about said topic to speak too much about it. However, if it comes into gun laws and arming officers in Portland State University, I completely agree with Tiffany in the aspect that violence should always be a last resort. Always, no matter what. It's think first, not shoot first, right? And that just doesn't just go into campus life, campus security. That goes into all types of security, right? And it's unfortunate to hear what has happened. However, what I can say is to push for much better training in regards to our security. And that can be said, easily said. However, can it be done is the question.
100%. I agree. They need more training. I don't necessarily agree with any of the disarm PSU. I don't know if that's a controversial opinion or not. But I have a few friends who work at CPSO, and I've talked to them, and they tell me how frustrating it is to connect with the student body because people are so afraid of speaking to them, even though they want to hold seminars and explain. Like, they've had a couple instances of people walking to campus with guns with intention to hurt people. But that's the stuff we don't hear about because the police stop them before they get here. So I believe that they do need to stay armed, but that, as my friends at CPSO have told me, they do need more training of when to use those weapons because those should be last resort, always. Guns should be last resort.
Yeah, I think Portland State likes to lead by a form of shared governance, and maybe that isn't exactly what happened in this case, communication-wise. As students, we all have different opinions on this subject, but I just saw the recent article in Vanguard and the pie charts that you all shared of every student that responded to you said that they wouldn't prefer that action be initiated. So that says something about whether or not the administration is necessarily listening to our students. So maybe that's something we need to identify and definitely create some type of initiative towards. So better communication with our administration is definitely needed, at least within this topic.
Yeah, I think the general lack of student involvement from the administration when making this decision was, it sort of came at a detriment to them because now you've broken that trust, what little was there, to begin with, maybe. But yeah, I think in decisions like these that really affect the students should be the first people that are involved in said discussion when coming up with a decision to make.
Do you believe arming officers is an appropriate response to the increased need, as mentioned, for security on campus? If not, how do you believe campus security should be responding?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer based on what we have said and what we've heard. As we know, officers who carry sidearms should be highly trained, not only in when and how to use, but how to avoid using weaponry. I think that some of it's the perspective of, do you feel afraid on your campus? And so maybe the entire question isn't should they have weapons, but how do we address students' need to feel safe? What makes you feel unsafe? And how do we address that? Because I don't necessarily feel safer that an officer somewhere on campus may have a weapon, because I'm right here where no one is. So how do we address the students' feeling of well-being while they're on campus when they don't see an officer present and when they do? We know for a fact that people of color are in greater danger when someone is armed. And so we need to address from that direction as well. So generally speaking, I'm not 100% sure. I think there are valid arguments to be made on both sides, and the biggest key is education from both sides.
Yeah, I agree with her. And then, like I mentioned about other debate too, is what I wanted to I wanted to see something different, like a team, like a social workers with a police, on-campus police. I mean, social workers. This is one of the only one state university has a social work program, and there are a lot of social workers candidate here, and they wanted to have paid internship, and then they can combine with them too. And then city of Portland already has those team, like social workers and the police are go around. So they can do that at a combination. I was watching, like Wednesday, they had like a 3-armed police was protecting us, and that event, something happened in a social, in front of a social workers building. I was just watching it, and how they send, and are they just white police, or is a combination with Asian and black and white, and then just I wanted to make sure they're all mixed. So it's just
We're at time.
collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't feel that I have the authority to say what should happen and what shouldn't happen for student safety. What should happen, however, in regards to discourse between police and student body, or security and student body, is that there should be more openness towards discourse. To be able to have the student body speak and feel safe around their security, that should be the question. How do they feel more safe around their security? Because if someone comes in with ill intent, right, and they have a firearm, and the police don't have a firearm, what's gonna happen? These are the kind of questions that we should be asking. And I feel that Ahmed could speak more on that.
Yeah, I have another friend who is adamantly against arming PSU, and we got into arguments over this, but the conclusion we came to is that ultimately you need the officers to be trained, and if you can't train everybody, you need designated officers who are armed. And then you also need the students to be more informed before they did make a decision on whether they want campus to be armed. The question is, and actually there's two questions. Would you prefer, in the event that there is an active shooter on campus, that only the active shooter has a gun, or that your campus safety has a gun? Number two, the second question is, do you think that officers have the right to take life if needed? If somebody else is intending to take student life, do the officers have the right to take that person's life?
I think overall, I'm only as educated as what I can read and what I have seen around campus. I don't necessarily experience the same experiences as other people around, so that is something that I definitely consider when thinking about these topics. However, like the other candidates said, education and training on both of these subjects is super important, as well as that shared governance, again, aspect of PSU, because students should have a voice in this matter since it affects us so deeply. And if students feel more safe one way or the other, then that should definitely be taken into consideration.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I don't have all the information necessary to make an informed opinion on, or informed decision on, that decision, but I would be in agreement with everyone else that training is definitely important, and it could help save lives as well as stop problems before they become bigger problems, I guess.
Thank you. Moving on to questions regarding campus relations and inclusivity. What strategies will you employ to make sure that your personal beliefs do not get in the way of your ability to represent and address the needs of the student body as a whole? For instance, if a widespread student survey results in overwhelming support of an issue that you strongly oppose, such as armed officers or increasing tuition, how will you approach this?
I had an experience when I was on J-Board where there was a decision that had to be made that in my heart I disagreed with, but to align with the Constitution, I had to rule against my own feelings and my own wishes. And those are difficult truths to sit with, but we have to do what is best for everyone. Sometimes that looks like going with the majority, and sometimes it looks like elevating minority voices, but it never looks like elevating myself.
I agree with her.
I've said this many times. The point and the job of the ASPSU is to represent the student body. If there is a need by the student body, of the mass student body, that they want something to be pushed, we will be there to advocate. That's who we are. That's why there is an Associated Students of PSU, right? We want to be able to advocate for these students for change, regardless of what we want. We're just here to voice their needs, not our own.
Yeah, I think there's two aspects to this. There's that we are supposed to represent the students, so even if it misaligns with what we believe, that's what we're going to push for, because that's our job, is to push for what the students are. Now, there's the other part of the university that they make decisions that they believe are the best for the university, even if the students don't agree. but that's not our job.
I think in overall ASPSU, the majority often rules, and that's just how our voting style is. However, that doesn't mean that any voices are less heard or less important than others, because everyone is still entitled to their own opinion, no matter what the judgment is in the end. I think this kind of goes back to how I answered the conflict problem or question, is that if you have understanding, open-mindedness, and just a ability to learn and grow from a scenario, that's the most important thing and the most thing I'm most passionate about. So I don't see this being an issue for me.
Yeah, for me, I think I believe in the sanctity of democracy. You know, it's a great thing that everyone can voice their opinions on different topics, but and that's why, you know, you run for elections. And if someone votes, or if a majority of people vote in that way, we are here to represent their voice. And really, that's why you should be an ASPSU for that purpose, rather than, you know, furthering your own agenda or whatever it might be that you have. So.
Thank you. How is ASPSU going to connect students to administration and or other resources when conflict arises, for example, discrimination or others?
Can you repeat the question?
How is ASPSU going to connect students to administration or other resources when conflict arises?
It's a really difficult question, because sometimes our conflict will be with administration. I think the most important thing is to go back to those conflict resolution skills, and also being willing and able to reach out to others who can mediate, because we need to have perhaps a neutral third party, especially when there's such a power differential between students and administration. We can't exist in a vacuum where the oversight is also perhaps the group with which we have a problem. We need some external voice that can help us navigate that power differential and not essentially defer to those who hold the power.
I agree with her, and then the adding to it is hopefully the conflict is going to be like a surprise conflict. Hopefully we have cultivate the relationship before that, and then little bit and step by step, day by day with the administration. Thank you.
So the question was how we can connect the student body to faculty if there's ever a conflict, correct? Okay. In regards to that, as our job, as I said multiple times, our job is to advocate, is to be the voice, right? And we can't do that without knowing our body, without knowing what issues they have, what conflicts they have. How can we bring a conflict if we don't know what that conflict is? We need to have the students come to us to voice their issues. They need to tell us what's wrong first and what is the issue. That's first step before doing anything. We need to have prerequisites before handling any of this. After that, we need to have a mediator, just as Tiffany said. Now, that mediator can be the ASPSU, or it can be an outside organization. It could be another student, for all we know, right? Conflict really determines on who the people are, who the parties are, how open they are, how willing they are to hear the other side. Enough said.
Yeah, I think fear can often block a lot of students in certain scenarios that they may be uncomfortable with, whether it be conflict or other scenarios. So it is up to us to be a support system for a lot of students. And, you know, Tucker and I have been part of this organization, so we've had the ability to connect with a lot of faculty as well as other positions around the college and already create those relationships to ourselves feel comfortable coming to them with certain scenarios, even if it isn't for ourselves, but for someone else. So creating that support system will be crucial for me with other students, and making sure that they are heard and safe and feel comfortable. And, you know, it's up to us to deal with those conflicts for them. That's what we're signing up for. And, you know, it can be a good learning experience at the same time.
I think ASPSU is in a unique position where we have direct access to the administration, especially the president and VP. They have like meetings with the president of the university, and these are times when you
1
could
minute warning.
use your voice to represent the student body, really face to face, right in front of the president, not over email or a survey or anything like that. You can really get, in their face and tell them what the students want. So I think we're in a unique position in that way.
Thank you. Moving on to questions about food insecurity. Do you believe food insecurity is a problem on campus? And if so, what are the main contributors to food insecurity on campus?
It's definitely a problem. Some of the main contributors are that we have a low income rate compared to what it costs to live here. And I think that's true for probably the vast majority of our student body, that it is very expensive to live in this city and go to school and focus on school and not having to have one full-time or multiple part-time jobs. I myself have multiple part-time jobs. That's how I can get by. One of the things that we can do to address food insecurity is to increase the number of pop-up food banks that we have on campus so that students don't have to necessarily go into the belly of Smith, but they can go to other places on campus and find things to eat. And those things can be shelf stable and exist in different spaces.
1 minute warning.
Yeah, I'm adding to her, and I totally agree with her. And so, like what we're doing in a resource center for students with children and a basic needs hub is we give them information where they can reach out to the community. So, empower this food pantry we have, and also we can have more resources connect with the community. Thank you.
I definitely feel that there is an issue in regards to food insecurity, especially with students who live on campus, not so much as the commuters, right? And we were speaking to food pantry staff, we were speaking to actually Cultural Resource Center staff, is that there were more situated food pantry areas. Just like Tiffany said, there were pop-up food banks, right? Now, they don't just have to be pop-up, they could be situated in those areas, right? Be more accessible towards the students. And we can for sure allocate our funds towards the food pantry. That'll be difficult. That's been an issue for how many years now, right? But if there's just enough drive, just enough push by the student body, I do feel that there could be a way in which we can allocate the fees better towards the food pantry, no matter how hard it's going to be. Enough said.
Well, let me tell you something real quick. I'm part of SFC, and we have just gotten the great opportunity to allocate around $300,000 to a new expansion for our food pantry. So prioritizing that and making students aware that the more students that actually go to the food pantry, the more food that we are allowed to get. So that is just something that we are looking to cultivate and make sure that everyone knows, because it is okay to have these insecurities. A lot of our students actually can't meet their basic needs, so having that hub, having our food pantry, even having transportation resources are super important and vital for our students actually coming to school. So that's a necessity that we need to work on and continue to grow with.
I think it goes back to communication, definitely making sure that students know that these resources exist and that we have so many ways that they can get the things that they need. And that's students who have been on campus, students who are going to be on campus, transfer students, everyone. We have these things, and it's just a matter of they need to know about it. And like she said, the more people that visit, the more opportunity you have for expansion and growth and stuff like that.
Awesome, thank you. Moving on to the last topic of tuition and fees. What do you believe is the best strategy to bring tuition costs and student fees down?
I think that what our best area is that we could address tuition and fees is to push into finding outside funding, meaning outside the students, getting increased funding through the state or the federal government in order to better subsidize the cost of tuition. And I don't know how much of this exists, but how much could we increase external revenue streams? For example, some of the buildings have rooms that they rent out to outside organizations that just need meeting space, and other kinds of revenue streams that would relieve some of the burden on the students.
Yeah, I agree with her. And then adding to it is like a short term is like getting fundings other places or scholarship and this, and then have a maybe student like hopefully the 20 hours limited. The student worker is going to be like more like a 30 hours, 40 hours, because its economy situation is changing, and then we need a job on campus. Actually, on-campus job is help the student to study more than go out to work. And then long term, hopefully we kind of have a good education from PSU and the students get a good job so they can come back to contribute us more to, that's a long term. So it's talking about marketing, branding. Everybody have the culture to feel like we are a part of the branding. So we have to do better or something. Thank you.
One of our main goals, as we mentioned, was to increase the hours of cultural resource centers, and that doesn't just go into because we want to relax more, so it creates more opportunities for students to work, for work study. They can have longer hours, and with longer hours, they get more money. It's as simple as that. And it's not just the work study, it's also applying for better federal grants as well for institutions. Being able to get money from outside sources, just as they said, so that they can subsidize the costs for students. Incidental fees. If I don't know if you guys know what incidental fees is, sometimes the students, it's for the rec center, for the pool, for any other activity that you have on campus. That's what those fees are for. Possibly making those an option rather than forcing them onto students, right? Or decreasing the cost of them. There's a lot that we can push for and a lot that we can allocate. However, it's a means of whether or not we have the drive to do so.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've gotten to be involved with this year is TRAC, which is our tuition review committee. And that's a little bit lower level. It's not as fun, of course, but it is an opportunity for students to go and have their voices heard. It's very important. That's how we allocate the tuition, or how we ask how much we're going to end up paying. So that's an option for students, as well as, like everyone has said, federal funding is going to be crucial. And like Tucker and I are very excited and passionate about to do lobbying days and invite legislators to come in and talk, because they're inevitably the ones who are going to get that done for us. So creating that communication between them and us is something that we will both work very hard for.
Yeah, I think just to add on, in the long term, definitely bringing back up enrollment, because the more people you have here, the lower tuition will be. That's just how it works. So definitely figure out ways to get those students to come to PSU, bring incentives, anything to up enrollment would really help lower that tuition cost.
Awesome. Thank you all. I think we have some time for questions from, we have 2 audience questions online. How will you use your experiences and platform to connect with students of different cultural and racial communities and backgrounds?
So I think that it really dovetails with our platform, which is community building. We're all part of this same community. We all bring our own communities with us. I think that, yeah, we all want to, I think I could speak probably for all of my mates here up on the stage. We all want to build community. We all want to get to know people, and get to know people as their authentic selves, and build a space where everyone can show up as their self.
Yeah, I've been working at the international companies and then school in the Tulsa Community College, and all the got different cultures, background. I'm from Japan. I taught in Japan and here in the States, and hopefully those mixed. And I raised my son to, he's biracial, and hopefully that all experience and the educations and help to build this community. Thank you.
For us specifically, the question isn't how we can build that connection. It's how we can sustain that connection. We've made that connection. We've been creating this connection for the past 2 years now. The amount of student organizations that are endorsing us, that are pushing for us to become president, vice presidents, because they know that we will speak for them. We already know them. We're already in connection with them. The question is how we can bring more into us. How can we outreach to different organizations, to more organizations to come together, to be able to speak with each other, to have events with each other, right? How they can have discourse with each other. There's certain organizations that are unfortunately against other organizations. How can we be mediators for that, right? So let me reiterate, it's not how to continue to build, right? It's how we can sustain and then build. It's that.
I'm going to give an example on this subject. Actually, ASPSU this year was talking about a very large restructure to our overall organization. So moving into next year, and hopefully if people vote on the ballot for our constitution changes, we will be opening up 2 committees to be advisory boards for all of our fee-funded areas, which includes the Women's Resource Center, Queer Resource Center, all of our cultural resource centers. Those are going to really help cultivate the connection between students and all of our resources on campus, because it's a sense of forced proximity, but also an option and an ability for our students to know what's going on in these centers, talk to these people, a liaison between our students and these groups. So that will be very beneficial for all of our communication processes.
Yeah, she couldn't have said it any better. This restructure, if it does pass, is going to help tremendously going forward with ASPSU making that connection with the diverse student body of PSU.
All right, and then another question from online, from an anonymous attendee. I left ASPSU due to the cultural toxicity. How will you change that culture?
Ouch. And that hurts when we hear that it's difficult for someone to be among us, right? I think that, again, making a space where people can show up as their authentic selves, even when we disagree. It's okay to have a different opinion, and it's okay to have different experiences and a different direction and a different goal. I think in order to address toxicity, the leader needs to be ready to accept people for who they are, where they are, and lead by example. That we don't tolerate toxicity and we don't tolerate harming others because they have a different opinion or a different goal or what have you. Like I said, there are times where we may even disagree with what we have to do in the course of doing our jobs, but we can't allow that to affect our relationship building.
Yes, enough she said. And then we are both a parent, and we have kids, and they're all grown up, and hopefully that experience help the inclusiveness and just accept who they are to raise us too in the same time. Thank you.
There were many times in which I wasn't accepted in different communities. Certain people didn't accept me for how I look or what I do or how I think on certain things. And that's why I feel for this question. It's because the government, they're supposed to connect, right? Before we can give any solutions towards the body, we need to have solutions for ourselves. Before we can fix them, we need to fix ourselves, right? And I don't know too much about government culture. However, what I can say is that Ahmed and I, we can bring new face if there is a need for it. We don't have tolerance for anything of the sort. We have a strict zero tolerance policy when it comes to abusing mentally, right? And mentally or even physically abusing a different member of the ASPSU, right? Or anyone. Zero tolerance policy. And because of this, we believe that we can bring new face and we can bring change to any culture that is possibly hostile towards other ASPSU members.
1 minute warning.
We don't tolerate BS. If there's an issue, it's going to be brought out in front of everybody, and we're going to address it in front of everybody. And if it means somebody has to leave, it'll mean somebody has to leave, but at least everybody will be on the same page.
Because we have a little bit of time left, I'd like to say, I'm sorry, future ASPSU members, but I don't care about embarrassment. I don't care about secondhand embarrassment. I will call out if necessary, for sure.
I think this may be the first time that I disagree with these two. I think there's differences between personal conflicts and then group conflicts, of course. No one hopefully wants to be called out or wants to be put in that situation. That's something that we can all talk about as a group in the case that happens with community agreements and whatnot. But just, respect is a big thing for me, and it is granted and then, given freely, and hopefully everyone can be with that same mindset, and no one wants to be hurt in this situation. I would hope that this would be a fresh start for a new team in this upcoming year, and past graduates would not be held. If that is the case, then it's definitely something that we need to communicate and talk on, but hopefully this new team will be more open-minded and respectful, and just overall wanting to collaborate in a communication process that is safe and good for everyone.
Yeah, I just think PSU is such a diverse campus that there's really no place for toxicity in any way, any capacity. So yeah, Lanie really couldn't have said it any better.
Awesome. We have time for one or two more questions from the audience, whether online or in person.
Hi, I'm curious, in a situation where hypothetically the administration, say, makes a unilateral decision that is very controversial with the student body, how would you respond to that, and how would you go about making student opinions heard to the administration?
Oh, that sounds familiar. So I think that something that we can do is we can go to the administration and bring for survey data. So we gather opinions that are aggregate and quantitative, but we can also bring the ethnographic or qualitative information. What are some quotes from students who are feeling really passionate about the topic? It helps people understand why it is that you feel passionate, to not just say, X number of students do not like this decision, but how does this decision affect my lived experience on this campus? And by corollary, how does it affect future students, the students you want to bring here? Because it's not just about me, but it's the people that follow me as well.
Yeah, and then I really totally agree with her. I'm going to support her 100%. And then the relationship, I just wanted to keep building up little bit to have relationship with the administrations, just daily base, so they won't kind of shock me or something. We can start talking at the personal level first a little bit to ease out. So that's I'm trying to avoid that conflict. Thank you.
I feel that the main point here is standing your ground, right? And how you can back those grounds. We can go with surveys and petitions and whatnot and bring those results to them. However, are we able to convince them, right? Are we able to give compelling points towards the administration, explaining why we should do this and do that, right? Being able to curate discussion between students and administration is a main key point for us. It's not just us speaking to administration. It's able to bring representatives from the other students as well. We're not the only representatives here. We shouldn't be the only representatives here. We should have students represent themselves in times as well, because sometimes there's only so much we can say about students and what's on their mind, right? Sometimes the conflict directly affects that said student. That said student has to come and speak with the administration, with us on their side, with us backing them and us advocating for them.
Yeah, it's different when it's just numbers versus when you can see a face and you feel empathy towards a person. So perhaps we need to bring students with us to meetings, especially if it involves them.
Yeah, overall keeping that, sense of professionalism. If there's been a conversation that has, happened, not went well, there's been no conclusion, I would say it's, almost fair game after that point. we have our student groups for a reason. Take Vanguard, for example. If they are better able to articulate something that a student is not feeling heard on, or has something happen to them, that is a resource as students first that we can also use and band together and create a community in that way. The administration is great to work with, and we hope to have a great relationship with them in the future. But in the case that we need to go outside of the college even, I would not be opposed to that fact if it is in need of a student. So
Yeah, I think Lanie said it right. Like we said before, we are in that unique position where we do have that face-to-face ability to talk with the administration. I think that's a very powerful tool, as long as we have these conversations, hopefully before these controversial decisions are made. And yeah, just making sure that they know that what students want and what students need, because I mean, a campus is only as strong as the student relationship with their administration.
Hi, I have a question. I really admire y'all's agendas and stuff. Y'all got some really cool, ambitious things. I'm just curious, like outside of your studies at PSU, what other commitments do you have, and how are you going to balance that with doing all these ambitious things? And what like credit loads are you anticipating on taking in this next academic year?
That's an awesome question. In my other world, I wear many hats. I work at the Hatfield School of Government part-time as a federal work study student. I work as a K-12 sub, so I teach kiddos anywhere from kindergarten to high school. Because I work as a sub, I get to choose how many days I do or don't work, which helps me balance my life kind of on the fly. Next year, I'll be taking, as a grad student, I take 9 credits a term, roughly. And yeah, I'm able to manipulate my world to meet my needs as far as work goes.
Well, my career goal is working full-time here. So this is a part of my self-marketing to the on-campus. And then everything is I had a PACE program, higher ed, a degree, and now I'm social work, try to be a good counselor for the students. So this is a really part of my career. So it's cannot separate it. Thank you.
I myself am the Vice President of the Muslim Student Association, officer of the Black Student Union, and officer of other set organizations, right? However, I make sure that I get my priorities straight. That's the question. I make sure I get my priorities straight, right? And by this I mean is that I leave certain tasks, certain issues for later, and then if there are other more pressing matters, I put them at hand. As simple as that. It's all about priorities and getting your priorities straight. I can take 24 credits, right? I can be doing this and doing that. Especially because I'm an undergrad, I don't have as many priorities as others. I'm still able to get my priorities straight.
Yeah, it's all about prioritizing. You only have a limited amount of time in your day. As a university, you only have a limited amount of money, and we have to decide how to allocate it. We have to decide how to allocate our time. And in general, I think one of the things PSU is really good at is the professors are pretty accommodating. If I need to miss a test, for example, for a meeting, I can always take it another time. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for me.
I would continue this not being an issue discussion. Prioritizing again is important. I'll be graduating in June with my BS, and then I will be continuing my MBA in the fall. So I'm lucky enough and thankful enough that I have that on my plate, and that's pretty much it, along with student government. So yeah.
Yeah, like everyone else said, I'm a full-time student worker, but also in ASPSU. This year, my job in ASPSU is pretty, I wouldn't say intensive, but it does get up there, but I'm very capable of maintaining my schedule and making sure that I turn things in on time and when they need to be. So.
Hi, my name is Grayson. I have a question specifically for PSU for you. So one of the things you mentioned was increasing hours for the cultural resource centers. And that's a great goal, but you also mentioned decreasing or maybe making the student incidental fee optional. Besides the fact that the president doesn't set that fee and doesn't have any control over it, how do you plan to find a balance of making that optional, if campus resource centers primarily rely on that as their funding?
Now, we have something called brainstorming, right? And when it comes to brainstorming, it's us expressing our ideas or what we feel can happen, is possible to happen, correct? As I mentioned earlier, with the student body, if there is a need of utmost importance, right? And if we can project that need towards the student body, it can happen to some degree. And we wholeheartedly believe that. Of course, there's a possibility of it not happening in regards to the incidental fee, right? Making it optional or decreasing the cost, right? If we bring it up with the student body and the student body wants it, they yearn for it, and they hope for it to happen, we can bring it up. If it's accepted, it's accepted. If it's declined, it's declined. As simple as that. The fact of the matter is that we presented it, is that we showed the student body that we have an interest in their interests, in what they want. And if they want it, we're gonna advocate for it, as simple as that. It can be denied, and after that, there's only so much we can do, right? But the point is that we go for it. We show that there is initiative to push for things, even if it seems impossible. Good question.
Hi, my name is Antonio Cedrin Gonzalez. I am a part of the Student Success Initiative. I work closely with the Vice Provost of Student Success, and I'm also working with Cynthia Gomez, who's the Director of Community and Civic Impact. And I'm just curious, I want to hear from you all specifically, who's not in the room and why are they not here? Outside of scheduling conflict, because I know schedules are just a thing, but I want to know specifically who's not here and why are they not here? Why do you think they're not here?
I would like to clarify your question. Do you mean from our slate who is not here, or do you mean from the community who is not here and not represented?
I'm gonna let you interpret that.
Fantastic. We are missing some people from our slate specifically because they have work commitments and could not be here. They work on campus, but here we are. We're people who wear many hats, right? And there are a lot of people from our community who may not be represented here. I can't identify everyone's identities, but I would also say that there are not a lot of people here in general, which is something that we could address in the future, to have more people like yourself saying, hey, where is everybody? Or asking more questions, putting us on the spot, which is fun.
I love that question. Now, when it comes to events such as this, there's only so much we can do to advertise it as students, right? I think advertising this is up to Portland State and the Vanguard in regards to people showing up. In regards to our slate, we have one other in our slate. He is joining us through Zoom, so unfortunately he had other commitments, so he couldn't make it here physically. However, we do have our friends here, over there, and we have other people attending through Zoom. For Muslims and for certain communities, right, Friday is a time of peace and time of holiday, right? We ourselves are going out of our way to join this event, to come to the debate, to speak to you, to represent our people, right? There's many people we represent, all shapes and sizes, all colors, right? We represent all of them, and we hope to continue to represent them, even if they're not present.
Well said.
I think there could potentially be a lot of people not represented in this room, one being that I can see or I'm assuming is parents specifically. Friday is also a tough day for everyone. It's not necessarily the day that most people have classes on, so it could have been better choosing, but we also had 2 other debates. So there's a lot of different scenarios and things, hypotheticals that could go into this, but surveys are always an option. Communication is definitely needed to make sure that a lot of students can be here, as well as advertisement. So all things that we can work on in the future.
All right, thank you. I think that's our time. Thanks so much.